The salvage yards of Keth Prime stretched beyond the horizon like a graveyard of forgotten dreams. Twisted metal hulks and discarded machinery created a maze of shadows where anything could hide. Joran Blackwood picked his way through the debris, his scanner beeping steadily as it detected valuable components buried in the wreckage. At 34. Joran had spent half his life on this frontier world, making a living from the bones of crashed ships and abandoned settlements. The work suited him: solitary, predictable, with just enough danger to keep life interesting. He preferred the company of broken machines to broken people. The scanner's pitch changed, warbling with an unfamiliar frequency. Joran frowned, tapping the device against his palm. The signal was coming from behind a cluster of cargo containers. Their surfaces scarred by acid rain and solar radiation. He rounded the corner and stopped dead. 2 figures huddled in the shadow. Between containers, clearly not human, a larger one, obviously the mother, wrapped her arms protectively around a smaller form. Their skin held a faint silver luminescence that pulsed weakly with each breath. Most striking were their wings' translucent membranes that should have caught and reflected light like living prisms, now hanging torn and useless. The mother's eyes met his, a brilliant amber that held both intelligence and desperate fear. She pushed her daughter behind her, despite her own obvious injuries. Dark fluid, their equivalent of blood, seeped from gashes across her wing membrane. Joran raised his hand slowly, keeping his voice soft. "Easy there. I'm not going to hurt you," the woman. He thought of her as a woman, despite her alien features, said nothing. Her daughter peered around her mother's shoulder with wide, curious eyes that seemed too large for her delicate face. "You're hurt," Joran continued, gesturing toward their damaged wings. "Those look infected." A gust of wind howled through the salvage yard, and both aliens shivered. Their clothing was little more than tattered fabric, offering no protection. Against Keth Prime's harsh climate, Joran's practical mind began calculating. Shelter, food, medical supplies, they needed all of it. But harboring unknown aliens could bring complications he didn't want. The colony had enough problems without adding refugee concerns to the list. The small one made a sound, soft and musical, despite their obvious distress. She touched her mother's arm and whispered something in a language that sounded like wind. Chimes in a gentle breeze that decided it. "Wait here," Joran said, already turning back toward his workshop. "I'll be back with supplies." As he walked away, he felt their eyes following him. For the first time in years, someone was counting on Joran Blackwood to be more than just a scavenger picking through ruins. He had no idea that simple choice would change all their lives forever. Nevia pressed her back against the cold metal wall, watching the human approach through the maze of debris. 3 days had passed since their first encounter, and still he came. Each morning, just as Keth Prime's twin suns crested the horizon. She would hear his footsteps crunching through the salvage. Today he carried a larger pack than usual. "Good morning," Joran said, setting down his supplies with careful movements. He had learned not to approach too quickly after Nevia had nearly bolted on the second day. Kira stirred beside her, the child's bioluminescence flickering weakly. The infection in their wings had worsened, despite Joran's primitive medical efforts. Nevia knew they didn't have much time left. "The antibiotics aren't working," she said in carefully practiced human words. Her people were natural linguists, but speaking through damaged throat membranes made each word painful. Joran nodded grimly. "I know, your biology is too different, but I brought something else." He unwrapped a small device that hummed with electronic life. "Bioscanner. Military grade. It should be able to analyze your cellular structure. Help me understand what you need." Nevia studied the machine warily. Advanced human technology could be dangerous to her kind. Their electrical fields sometimes interfered with Vorthok nervous systems. But watching Kira grow weaker each day, she had little choice. "Hey, why do you help us?" she asked, as Joran activated the scanner. He paused, considering the question. "My sister used to ask me that when I'd bring home injured animals. Never had a good answer then either." Scanner bathed them in soft blue light. Kira giggled weakly at the sensation, reaching out to touch the beam with one finger. The moment her luminescence brightened in response. "Your people, they don't welcome strangers," Nevia observed. "Most don't," Joran admitted. "Keth Prime. isn't exactly known for its hospitality. Too many raids, too many false promises from off-world traders. Yet you risk coming here. Not much of a risk. Nobody pays attention to what happens in the salvage yards. Naviya watched him work, noting the careful way he handled the scanner. The genuine concern in his eyes when he looked at Kira. In her long life, she had encountered many species, but humans remained puzzling. Capable of great cruelty, yet also unexpected kindness. "We are Vorthok," she said finally. "From the celestial gardens of Zhirk." Joran looked up sharply. Even on frontier worlds, the celestial gardens were legend-floating cities among the stars. Masters of bioluminescent technology. "Long way from home," he said quietly. "Home no longer exists for us." The words carried centuries of grief. My people. They feared what Kira might become. Mixed heritage is considered contamination. Mixed. Yes. Nevia's luminescence dimmed. Her father was human. A traitor who stayed long enough to... ... double quotes. She touched her daughter's face gently. Kira mumbled something. In Vorthok, and Nevia smiled despite her pain. What did she say? "She likes your eyes. Says they remind her of the blue stars we used to watch from our garden." Joran felt something shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. Looking at this brave mother protecting her unique child, he realized his daily visits had become more than charity. They had become the most important part of his day. Kira pressed her small face against the workshop window, breath fogging the reinforced glass as she watched Joran work. Her amber eyes tracked every movement as he welded components together, creating something she had never seen before. "Is that?" she asked in her improving human speech, pointing at the cylindrical device taking shape on his workbench. "Bioregeneration matrix," Joran explained without looking up. "At least, that's what I'm hoping it'll be." 2 weeks had passed since he'd moved them into the old storage bay behind his workshop. Officially, it was still abandoned. Unofficially, it had become their sanctuary. Nevia had transformed the sterile space with her people's gift for bioluminescent art patterns of living light that grew across the walls like flowering vines. "Will it fix Mama's wings?" Kira asked, unconsciously flexing her own damaged membranes. "That's the plan." Joran set down his tools and turned to face her. "Want to help?" Kira's entire form brightened with excitement. Over the past days, she had become his eager apprentice, her quick mind grasping human technology with surprising ease. Her small fingers were perfect for reaching into tight spaces, and her intuitive understanding of energy patterns made her invaluable. "This part here," Joran pointed to a complex circuit array, "needs to be calibrated to match Vorthok biorhythms. Think you can handle the fine adjustments?" Kira nodded solemnly and climbed onto the tall stool beside him, her natural luminescence interfaced with the device in ways Joran was still learning to understand. Where human technology relied on crude electrical impulses, Vorthok biology used subtle quantum fluctuations that could enhance or disrupt mechanical systems. "Mama says I shouldn't touch human machines," Kira confided as she worked. "Says they might hurt me." "Your mama's protecting you," Joran replied. "This isn't just a human machine anymore. It's something new, human engineering guided by Vorthok understanding." As if summoned by their conversation, Nevia appeared in the workshop doorway. Her condition had stabilized but not improved. The wing tears were healing slowly, leaving scar. Tissue that would never allow true flight again. "She should not be exposed to so much technology," Nevia said, though her tone lacked real reproach. "She's teaching me as much as I'm teaching her," Joran replied. "Look at this." He activated the bioregeneration matrix. The device hummed to life, but instead of harsh mechanical sounds, it sang a harmony that resonated with Vorthok frequency patterns. Kira had somehow bridged the gap between two incompatible technologies. Nevia stepped closer, her luminescence responding to the device's energy field. "This is ... remarkable. How did you know to modulate the quantum substrate?" "I didn't," Joran admitted. Kira figured that out on her own. Mother and daughter exchanged a look filled with meaning. Nevia knelt beside Kira, speaking rapidly in their musical language. The child responded with equal intensity, gesturing toward the device, and then toward her mother's damaged wings.
At.
She saying, Joran asked. Nevia's amber eyes glistened. She says she wants to heal me so we can fly together again, she says. ... She says you've given her hope. Joran felt that familiar warmth spread through his chest. Watching this extraordinary child work beside him, seeing her natural gifts flourish in an environment of acceptance rather than fear, he began to understand something profound. He wasn't just helping them survive. They were helping him remember what it meant to have a family. Ready to test it? He asked. Quira placed her small hand over his larger one. Together, he confirmed the device activated with a song of healing light. Captain Thorn Voss stepped off the transport shuttle onto Keth Prime's windswept landing pad, his augmented eyes automatically scanning the settlement's perimeter. Behind him, 3 heavily armed mercenaries checked their weapons and activated personal shield generators. Target confirmed on-world, Voss spoke into his comm unit, beginning systematic search. The bounty on the Vorthok refugees was substantial enough to fund his operation for a full year. More importantly, the client had been very specific about wanting them alive and unharmed. That suggested they were more valuable than simple political fugitives. Voss had tracked them across 4 star systems, following a trail of abandoned shelters and suspicious medical supply purchases. The trail had gone cold on Keth Prime until 3 days ago, when his informant in the salvage district reported unusual energy readings. Sir, his lieutenant gestured toward the sprawling maze of debris. Bioluminescent traces detected in Sector 7, consistent with Vorthok signatures. Voss smiled coldly. After 2 months of hunting, his quarry was finally within reach. In his workshop, Joran felt the hair on the back of his neck rise. Something was wrong. The salvage yards had gone unusually quiet. Even the native scavenger birds had stopped calling. Nevia, he called softly. We need to talk. She emerged from the storage bay where she had been resting after another session with the bioregeneration matrix. The treatments were working. Her wings showed new growth along the damaged edges, but the process was exhausting. Someone's here, Joran said simply. Military-grade sensors, judging by the electromagnetic signature. Nevia's luminescence immediately dimmed to almost nothing.
Hey, hunters, can you travel?
If I must. She moved to wake Kira, but Joran stopped her. There's another way. He activated his workshop's security protocols, sealing the entrances and engaging stealth shielding. This place has been my home for 15 years. Down every hiding spot, every escape route. You cannot fight trained killers for us, Nevia protested. I'm not planning to fight them.
Oh.
Joran began pulling weapons from concealed compartments. I'm planning to convince them you're not worth the trouble. The workshop's proximity alarms chimed softly.
Oh.
4 figures approached through the salvage maze, moving with military precision. Joran Blackwood, a amplified voice called out. We know you're harboring the fugitives. Surrender them peacefully, and you'll be compensated for your trouble. Joran activated his external speakers. Don't know what you're talking about, friend. It's just a salvage merchant trying to make a living. Bioscans don't lie, Blackwood. Did we? Detected Vorthok life signs. Lot of strange radiation in the salvage yards, Joran replied calmly. Plays havoc with sensors. Through the workshop's cameras, he watched Voss gesture to his men. They began spreading out, surrounding the building. Kira stirred in her mother's arms, awakening to the tension. What's happening? Bad people are here, Nevia whispered. But Joran will protect us. The child looked at Joran with absolute trust, and he felt something fierce awaken in his chest. These weren't just refugees he was helping anymore. They were his family, and no one threatened his family. Last chance, Blackwood, Voss called. Hand them over, or we come in shooting. Joran looked at Nevia and Kira, seeing in their eyes the same determination that had carried them across the galaxy. They had faced persecution, exile, and near death. They deserved better than to be merchandised for bounty hunters.
Ow, come and take.
Them, Joran said, powering up his workshop's defensive systems. The war for their freedom was about to begin. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rebuilt workshop as Joran watched Kira practice with the bioregeneration matrix. Her wings, now fully healed and stronger than ever, caught the light like living stained glass. The hybrid nature that had made her an outcast among the Vorthok now allowed her to do things neither species could accomplish alone. Perfect calibration, Nevia observed, her own wings rustling with pride. The scars from her old injuries had become intricate patterns that enhanced rather than diminished her natural beauty. It had been 6 months since the confrontation with Captain Voss, the bounty hunter's defeat, and the destruction of his ship by Joran's surprisingly sophisticated defenses had sent a clear message across the galaxy. Keth Prime was no longer hunting ground for those who preyed on the desperate. Joran Kira called out in her now fluent human speech, "The new family is arriving." Through the workshop window, Joran could see another transport settling onto the improvised landing pad, the third one this month. Word had spread through the underground networks that connected refugee communities. There was a place where the unwanted could find sanctuary. This transport carried a Zelthran family, their crystalline skin reflecting the alien sunset in prismatic rainbows. Behind them came a young Mokari, their fur patched with stress patterns from whatever horrors they had fled. "Think we have room?" Joran asked Nevia. She smiled, the expression transforming her features with warmth. "We always have room." The settlement had grown organically around Joran's workshop, prefabricated shelters mixed with structures built using Vorthok bioluminescent techniques and Zelthran crystal-growing methods. Each species contributed their unique abilities to the collective effort of building something new. Kira had become their unofficial ambassador, her mixed heritage allowing her to communicate with almost any species. She flitted between the workshops and gardens, her wings carrying her on errands of compassion and curiosity. "I never thanked you," Nevia said quietly as they watched the new arrivals settle in. "For what?" "For seeing us as people rather than problems. For giving Kira a chance to be herself rather than hiding what she is." Joran considered this. "You know what you gave me in return?" "What? A reason to build something instead of just scavenging through ruins?" The evening meal was a celebration, as it always was when new residents arrived. Different species shared their traditional foods and stories, creating a tapestry of cultures that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Kira sat beside Joran, translating jokes between a Mokari comedian and a cluster of delighted Vorthok children. Her laughter was the most beautiful sound in the galaxy. "Papa Joran," she said. The title had evolved naturally over the months. "You think we'll ever go to the stars?" Joran looked up at Keth Prime's night sky, ablaze with distant suns and possibilities. "Maybe someday. But first, we've got work to do here," good Kira said, snuggling against his side. "I like our work." Nevia approached carrying 2 cups of the Vorthok ceremonial brew she made for special occasions. "The Galactic Council sent another message," she reported. "They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with our settlement." "What did you tell them?" "That we'll consider it after they formally recognize the rights of hybrid children to exist without persecution." Joran grinned. "Think they'll agree? With Kira as our example?" How could they refuse? As the night deepened, Joran walked the perimeter of their growing community. Bioluminescent gardens cast gentle light across workshops where impossible. Technologies were being born from the marriage of different sciences. Children of a dozen species played together in the common areas, their differences source of wonder rather than fear. He had started this journey as a solitary salvage merchant, content to live among broken things. Now he was part of something living and growing, a family that had expanded to encompass an entire community of souls who had found each other among the stars. Behind him, Kira's laughter rang out as she taught Vorthok flying techniques to a young Zelthran whose crystal wings were just beginning to form. The future, Joran realized, was going to be extraordinary.